After getting walloped by back-to-back hurricanes, home sales have taken a dive in the Sunshine State. During COVID, people moved to the free state of Florida in record numbers. Real estate was snatched up, and land and property that was once affordable skyrocketed, competing with metro areas such as New York or the D.C. metro area. With the increase of prices and now storm after storm and the damage left in its wakes, home sales have dropped dramatically in Florida. The Floridian metro areas of Tampa, Miami, West Palm Beach, and Fort Lauderdale have dropped in home sales as much as 17%. Governor DeSantis has also signaled he will not restrict residents from rebuilding either. He wants life in Florida to go back to normal. Here he is.
Some communities have been hit twice very hard in 2 weeks. Climate change, habitat change, increasing the threat. I know it's a difficult conversation, but has there been a discussion about not letting some people rebuild?
So people, their property, they have a right to do with what they want to do with it.
So with homes damaged, buyers scared off, and increased risks of storms, should Americans still roll the dice and try and fight for a piece of real estate in DeSantis land? Joining us now is Dottie Herman, current vice chair and former CEO of Douglas Elliman Real Estate and the host of national radio show Eyes on Real Estate with Dottie Herman. Dottie, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
First of all, we love our Floridians, but at this time, those poor residents of that state are going through a roller coaster on the real estate front. Would you advise people to go down to Florida still at this moment?
Well, let me put it this way. Somebody asked me the other day, are people going to the real estate offices? And of course, in those areas, obviously, you can't even get by. So other than people who are hoping to get a real bargain, because when we had Sandy in New York and things were devastated, there were some people who said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to wait for the insurance. I just want to get out. You know,
well, right. And you let people vote with their dollars and vote with their, their belongings. And, I think that it's a self-selecting state. People who understand and love water, as you mentioned, are going to accept some of the risks that happen there. But, beyond just natural disasters, let's move over to the political disasters that are on the horizon. We have this real possibility of Kamala Harris taking over. And we also have this possibility of Donald Trump and two completely different leaders. Dottie, you're one of the richest women in real estate. That's your tagline. You know better than anyone else what's going on. Explain to us, from your vantage, the difference between Trump and Harris's plans on the real estate market for places like Florida, but just generally. Compare and contrast. How do these two plans affect the real estate going forward?
Okay, Camila, as you probably heard, because people have texted me, emailed me, said I'm going to give $25,000 to first-time home buyers. Now, that sounds great, okay? But you're considered a first-time home buyer if you haven't bought a home in 3 years. All right, but what she did not say is there's going to be certain conditions. You have to have a certain income level, and which is pretty low. You can't have debt. If you have too much money, if you have parents that have a house and might be helping you out a little bit here and there, you might be disqualified. There's a lot of limitations. There might be certain areas only. So you have to go for courses on learning how to be a homeowner, which is not the worst thing in the world if you're going to get $25,000, but it's not across the board that people are just going to buy a new home. It's their first time and they're just going to get $25,000. It really is. She's on more affordable housing and for a lower class and very low middle class. In saying that, if you're a builder and you're building in, a New York or Florida that are fairly expensive, you cannot afford to build homeowners. You can't build affordable housing and make any money on it. So So it sounds all great, but you really have to check the fine print before you jump and think you're getting the 25,000. And your income has to be pretty low, and you can't have parents have help you at all. And if they have a house, that might hinder you. Trump.
Well, it's certainly clear what they're doing on the Democrat side. They're just throwing all these freebies or these things that, as you say, sound good, look good on the surface. When you dive into the fine print, it's terrible, or very few real Americans could actually qualify. But
Right.
Again, I don't see that people are making that discernment. I don't know that people are reading the fine print.
I don't think people really listen to the issues, because I know I have 2 radio shows and I got so many people saying, oh, that's great, we're going to get $25,000. Well, 90% of the people are not going to be able to get that, even if they're a first-time buyer. Because, and when they say high income, we're not talking about $1 million or 500,000. We're talking about people that are not in poverty. And then those people, if they don't make enough money at all, they're not going to get it either. So you just can't jump. Now, Trump, his plan is to get developers to build. And to get developers to build, you have to give them incentives. And there in New York, they had a thing that it was called the 80-20, where if you were building a development and you wanted to get all the tax advantages and incentives and breaks, 20% of the building had to be for lower income housing. And then you would get all the perks. And their homes were the same exact as apartments as somebody who was paying $1 million. And so they did that. He's also trying to restrict, like, the bureaucracy about zoning, because a lot of places you can't build 3 or 4 story homes, or you can't build high rises. So he's trying to get some bureaucracy and some restrictions so that we can build more. But the key right now is also there's not a lot of inventory. So
going into that, Trump wants to cut down. I think that so much of that inventory problem, our last conversation, we were talking about the inventory problem, and it has to do with how the interest rates have been going up and down. They're at record highs now. Trump wants to cut interest rates down to 2% again. Is that even possible at this point in time?
I don't think they're going to cut them down. I mean, look, who knows who's going to be the president, but I see that they're going to take them down, but probably in a slow manner, because it's better probably to take them down slowly. And if, for some reason, you would lower interest rates to 2%, let's just assume that would happen, which I don't think it will, but let's assume, then there'll be there's a lot of buyers on the sideline now because of affordability. Houses are 4 times what they were almost like 10 years ago. I mean, they're just unaffordable. So you're gonna get all this rush, and there's a lot of people. The millennials is a big generation, and they want to buy homes, and then the homeowners will raise their prices, because remember, it's supply and demand. So if there's a big supply, okay, and there's no demand, then that's not a good market. But if there's a lot of supply and there's, then people will get lower, will lower their prices. I don't see anything happening right in the next 6 months. I also read that Hurricane Ian, which happened in Florida 2 years ago, that 2,200 people are still waiting to get $1 from their insurance company. So it's going to be a process. And I think that people should be aware. Zillow now puts ratings, like if there's fire, if there's flood zones, they put all these ratings down. I think people should look at that when they buy. I think that now, if you're looking for a deal and you're willing to take a risk, there might be people who have some house left and I saw it in Sandy, and just said, you know what, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. And so then you might get a good price.
Let me ask you this. We've got a shifting real estate landscape due to the increase of working from home. This has been a huge conversation in the commercial real estate side of things. And both Harris and Trump seem to be in favor of promoting the transformation of commercial real estate into residential units, basically taking empty office buildings we're seeing now, turning them into apartments. But Dottie, I understand a little bit about that. That seems to be a very expensive process to take a commercial unit and turn it into a residential one. Am I wrong?
It is very expensive. Now, grant you, and it will take years, but if you change the zoning, even the building I'm in the city, at one time you couldn't build over a certain height. Then they changed the zoning, and now my whole view is gone. Okay, so I think that'll take a long time, but I don't think, and this is just my opinion, I think as much as they're trying to get people to come back to work, and of course you get culture, you can't build a culture on the Zoom, okay, but I think it's going to end up some compromise because the millennials don't want to work every single day. They want to work from home. So let's just say you can work 3 or 4 days in the office and 3 days at home. Those commercial offices, which people really don't go into the way they did. I mean, everyone's trying to get them back, but you have a new generation. And that generation does not, they want to come in sometimes, but they don't want to come in every day, which allows people to live a little bit further away when they don't have the commute. And when you're talking about changing the zoning, that's not going to happen in 2 days. That's a long time coming. I mean, but I do think that if you're sitting with office building that's nobody's in, and you can convert them, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think it's
such an expensive. I mean, it's such a great idea. It's such a great idea on paper, but reality will often say otherwise. But we'll see. Dottie Herman, always a pleasure. Always an illuminating chat. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks.
Coming up, our viewers peer into their crystal balls and share what the future holds. It's time now for Mark My Words. Up next.